Rain poured over the silent town of Crestwood, washing the streets clean yet leaving an unsettling chill behind. In the old Harrington Manor, a place spoken about in whispers, a dim light flickered from the attic window even though no one had lived there for years. A group of college friends decided to spend their semester break exploring forgotten towns for documentary content. Among them was Eleanor, a history enthusiast, along with Michael, Sarah, and Louis. Their van rolled to a stop before the rusted gates of the manor, its presence towering like a relic from another time. A thick fog curled around the fence, and wind brushed through the dead leaves, creating faint whispers as if calling for attention. The door creaked violently when pushed, revealing a grand but decaying hallway. Painted walls peeled like snakeskin, chandeliers dangled crookedly, and dust filled the air in golden clouds under their flashlight beams. Their footsteps echoed endlessly as they walked inside, feeling the weight of long-abandoned memories pressing against them. The group set up their cameras, ready to document every corner, unaware of the story that was about to unfold. The silence inside was not empty, it was watchful. Sarah discovered a staircase leading up to the attic. Despite hesitation, curiosity urged them upward. Each step groaned under pressure, old with threatening to betray their weight. When the door opened, a strange warmth hit their faces, contrasting sharply with the cold outside. In the center of the room stood a massive portrait, an elegant woman in a crimson gown, eyes painted so vividly that they seemed alive. On the frame, a nameplate read, Lady Amara Harrington. Louis pointed the camera at the portrait and zoomed in. A chill spread through the room as the attic door slammed shut behind them. Flashlights flickered, casting moving shadows across the walls. Michael tried the door, but it would not budge. Something felt wrong, as if the air itself carried a heartbeat. Eleanor stepped closer to the portrait and noticed fresh tear stains painted down the woman's face, though the last brushstroke of paint should have dried decades ago. Sarah gasped as she noticed a faint whisper, soft, pleading, almost human. The voice flowed like wind but formed clear words, calling out from the silence. Eleanor leaned in, and suddenly the woman's painted eyes shifted ever so slightly, glancing toward her. The group froze, breath trapped in their lungs. The whispers grew louder, voices rising like a chorus of sorrow. The portrait's surface rippled faintly, as though something inside was trying to break through. The attic light burst with a pop, plunging the room into darkness. Only the glow from the camera screen remained. A shadow moved behind them, slow steps, heavy and deliberate. The portrait's frame rattled violently. The whisper became a tremor in the air, trembling through their bones. Then, in an instant, the painted woman smiled. Not a gentle smile, but one filled with grief and hunger, as if she had waited too long for company. Eleanor stumbled back, knocking over boxes as the sound of a distant lullaby drifted through the house. Not a melody of comfort, but one that pulled at the soul, hollow and haunting. They realized leaving might not be simple. The manor did not welcome visitors, it kept them. And Lady Amara was not merely a portrait, she was awake, aware, and she wanted them to listen. Thunder rumbled across the skies as the group scrambled for an exit. Michael beat his fists against the attic door until his knuckles reddened, yet it remained locked as if bound by something more than wood and metal. The air thickened, turning heavy enough to taste. Eleanor forced herself to breathe calmly and scanned the room for another way out. Cobweb-covered trunks lined the walls, and a narrow, dust-filled window stood at the far end, but its rusted hinges seemed fused shut. Behind them, the portrait of Lady Amara glimmered faintly, catching the pale light from the camera. The whispers sharpened into a woman's voice, soft like silk yet carrying years of anguish. She called the name Evelyn again and again, each repetition clearer than the last. None of them recognized the name, but Eleanor noticed a small inscription just below the frame, hidden under grime. With trembling fingers, she wiped the dust away and revealed a second line, "Find Evelyn. Free me." A shock passed through her. Lady Amara was not trying to scare them, she was pleading. But the question remained, who was Evelyn, and why was the spirit trapped? Sarah, shaking but determined, suggested searching the manor for clues. The attic door suddenly creaked and swung open by itself, as if granting them permission. No one spoke, they simply exchanged fearful looks and descended. The staircase moaned like something alive beneath their weight. Downstairs, the air smelled of old books and dampness. The hall stretched longer than before, as though the house itself had shifted. Portraits lined both sides of the corridor, every painted pair of eyes following them. Louis paused at one frame. A young girl with hazel eyes and braided hair. The name beneath read, Evelyn Harrington. His heart pounded as he pointed it out. Adjacent to her portrait hung another painting showing Lady Amara holding the same child tenderly. But this painting was defaced, claw-like marks shredded Amara's painted face, and crimson stains seeped down the canvas. Sarah's voice quivered as she read a faded journal resting below the painting. Its cover cracked open, revealing pages filled with hurried handwriting and ink blotches where tears once fell. The entries told of Evelyn's mysterious disappearance one stormy night. The townsfolk accused Lady Amara of witchcraft, believing she had sacrificed her own daughter to gain eternal beauty. Riots followed, and in blind rage, they locked her inside the manor. Amara's despair turned into fury, and legend claimed her spirit never left. According to the final entry, Evelyn was never found. The last line read, "My daughter, forgive me. I tried to protect you, but the shadows took you." The manor groaned as wind rattled every door. A cold draft swept through the hallway, extinguishing the candles they had lit. The whispers returned, louder, broken with grief. Eleanor realized the spirit did not want revenge, she wanted the truth uncovered. Evelyn was taken by something else within these walls. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Doors slammed shut behind them one by one, echoing like distant gunfire. The shadows pooled on the floor, rising into a tall, hollow shape with glowing eyes that burned like embers. The air turned icy as the apparition stepped forward. Its voice carried like a dying breath, warning them to leave. Michael grabbed the journal and ran toward the main hall, but the shadow glided forward with inhuman speed, blocking their path. Louis raised the camera, recording everything even with fear twisting his face. The shadow figure drifted closer, its form flickering between human and monster, and the walls seemed to breathe. They needed to find Evelyn's resting place, or something even darker would unfold. The house felt like a maze now, endless corridors, shifting rooms, and every second pressing louder with approaching doom. Sarah pointed toward the basement door, slightly ajar as if inviting them. A cold voice whispered from the darkness below, the same voice from the attic, but weaker, like a child crying for help. No one wanted to descend, yet the truth waited beneath that staircase. With trembling resolve, the group stepped into the depths, unaware of what waited in the dark. The basement stairs were narrow, draped in cobwebs, and each step downward muffled the storm raging outside as if the world above was being sealed away. Damp air clung to their clothes, and the soft echo of a child sobbing guided them deeper. The basement stretched wider than they expected, stone walls covered in mold, broken furniture scattered like forgotten ghosts. At the center stood a small wooden crib, rotted with age, rocking ever so slightly without wind. Michael raised the flashlight. Inside the crib lay a tiny doll, its porcelain face cracked, dress torn, and one lifeless glass eye missing. A silver locket hung around its neck with the name engraved elegantly, Evelyn. Eleanor's breath hitched. The crying stopped abruptly, replaced by silence so heavy it made their ears ring. The journal's pages fluttered open on their own to a passage they had not seen earlier. It described a secret ritual room sealed beneath the basement floor, meant to hide Evelyn during the riots. But something evil had awakened there instead, feeding on fear, trapping mother and child in a loop of sorrow. The room could only be revealed if Evelyn's locket was placed at the altar mentioned in the final entry. Sarah gently removed the locket and a deep rumble coursed through the ground. Dust rained from the ceiling as floor tiles shifted, revealing a staircase descending further below. They followed it, hearts pounding like war drums. At the bottom lay a chamber illuminated by a faint blue glow. An ancient altar made of black stone pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Symbols carved across the surface radiated cold energy. Chains hung from the walls, and beneath them lay skeletons, victims of the manor's curse. In the corner, almost invisible in the gloom, sat the ghost of a little girl. Evelyn. Her eyes were filled not with terror, but longing. Eleanor stepped forward slowly and placed the locket onto the altar. The chamber trembled violently. A piercing scream echoed through the entire manor, not of pain, but release. The shadow creature they faced above materialized in the room, howling as if its power was being ripped away. It lunged, but the altar's glow intensified, forcing it back. Evelyn's spirit floated upward, small hands reaching toward the faint silhouette of Lady Amara that appeared above the altar like rising mist. Mother and daughter embraced, their forms shining with ethereal light. The curse began to unravel. Walls cracked, dust swirled, and the manor groaned like a dying beast. The friends ran upstairs as everything around them crumbled. Portraits shattered, windows burst open, and the storm outside collided with the collapsing roof. They leapt through the front door just as the manor collapsed into itself, swallowed by the earth in one final thunderous roar. The night fell silent. Where the grand structure once stood remained only rubble and fading embers of blue light. The wind carried a soft whisper, grateful, gentle, before fading into peace. Eleanor, Sarah, Michael, and Louis stared at the ruins, realization sinking deep. They had not escaped empty-handed. The camera was still recording, capturing every moment from the attic to the final collapse. Not a ghost story, but evidence of a tragedy that begged to be told. Lady Amara and Evelyn were free, and their story would finally be known. The storm clouds cleared, and dawn washed the horizon in pale gold. What began as a search for content ended as a night none of them would ever forget. They walked back to the van silently, shaken, changed, knowing the world had witnessed only the surface of Crestwood's darkness. But some doors, once opened, never fully close. Behind them, deep in the soil, a faint lullaby continued to hum. Awaiting only the next curious soul.